on to Yemen's horrific civil war. It is intensifying despite global calls for a ceasefire, all while millions of people face starvation across the country. Heavy fighting is underway in the city of Marib, where Iran-backed Houthi rebels are clashing with government forces. This is an oil-rich area and has been a recent focal point in the devastating conflict that has gripped the country for more than 6 years. It's considered the last remaining government stronghold as Houthis ramp up their offensive against Saudi-backed troops. Many displaced people in this area are now calling on the international community to help end the bloodshed.
نتمنى من المبادرة الأمريكية ومجلس الأمن أن يسعوا في أوقاف الحرب ضد والهجمات على مارب، لأن في مارب من الملايين من النازحين من جميع المحافظات الجمهورية. لقد شردوا من الحوثي وفجر بيوتهم وشردهم ولاحقهم وسجنهم واعتقالات كثيرة فهربوا منه ومن الحرب والاعتقالات حق الحوثي إلى مارب. فنتمنى من المبعوث الأمريكي والأمم المتحدة مجلس الأمن أن يوقف الحرب والهجمات على مارب.
Well, the crisis is escalating across Marib. The United Nations recently addressed the dire humanitarian catastrophe and urged for an end to the immense suffering.
The humanitarian situation in Yemen is falling off a cliff, with more than 20 million Yemenis needing humanitarian assistance. This includes more than 16 million men, women, and children who are going hungry this year. Tens of thousands of people already living in famine-like conditions, with 5 million just one step away. COVID infections have been surging, with hospitals and health facilities reportedly turning away patients due to lack of resources to treat them. Fighting has been escalating, especially in Marib, where an offensive by Houthi forces has so far displaced nearly 20,000 people and threatens the safety of millions.
A new CBS News article dives into the unfolding crisis in Yemen and why those millions of people caught in the crossfire will have to wait even longer for some type of peace deal. CBS News producer Amjad Tadros wrote that report, and he's with me now from Amman, Jordan, to talk more about this. So, Amjad, can you just start with taking us through the latest developments in Marib? Just why is that region so strategically significant in this war?
As you said in your report, Marib is the only part of northern Yemen that is left under government control. And the Houthi rebels would love to put their hands on it because it is very strategic and has oil fields and an all-important oil refinery that they would like to get to and use its resources. So the government is really fighting hard to stay in control of that area. And the Houthis, for them, this is a big prize to get. So the fighting there has been raging since the beginning of the year, and both sides are claiming victories. But yet, I think the big losers are the Yemeni people themselves.
So then give us a sense of what it's like on the ground there. If you are not part of this military offensive, the innocent people that have been displaced, what are conditions there for them like?
Before the recent upsurge in the violence there, Marib has been relatively quiet, and that has made a lot of people go and live there. So there are lots of internally displaced people who are living in that region. There are about 1 million of them out of the 4 million who already are displaced within Yemen. So now with this escalation of violence, many people are also going to that area, and that is just creating chaos amongst the refugees or the internally displaced people in that area. And the refugees agencies cannot handle that. The problem is that also the war lines are shifting, so nobody knows, where the next attack is coming from, and the refugees are just going everywhere, and they are just very difficult to supply them with aid.
The Biden administration's position, I think, is sort of interesting here. As a candidate, President Biden was very critical of Saudi Arabia, said that Saudi Arabia would become a pariah. His comments about Yemen, he said that the U.S. would no longer support any Saudi offensive actions, but would be supporting defensive actions. So, most countries, when they are participating in a military action, are usually saying it's because it's a defensive move. We know that the U.S. envoy Timothy Lenderking and Democratic Senator Chris Murphy recently traveled to the region for talks with other foreign diplomats. Did anything substantial come out of that? The Biden administration says that they want an end to this humanitarian crisis. Does it look like anything is happening on that front?
Well, it's very clear that the Biden administration has a big interest to solve the whole crisis of Yemen. And that's stated by the fact that Biden was very quick in appointing a very seasoned diplomat to head the effort there. And Linder King has been to the region a couple of times, maybe 3 times already. And more recently, he was in the state of Oman, which is adjacent to Yemen. And he was there with the UN envoy and with other diplomats, and they had informal negotiations with the Houthi rebels in Oman. The negotiations were not face-to-face. The Houthis refused to meet them. So all the negotiations were going through third parties, through the Omani negotiators, who have been very effective. Oman has played a key part in the past in drawing the nuclear deal between the US and Iran. And, they believe in what's so-called the quiet diplomacy, and they have been successful in the past. In the past, more recently, they have been trying to put the two sides closer together. The problem is that the Houthis are feeling that they are gaining grounds in Marib, and that is making them, stall in the negotiations, waiting to see what's happening on the ground in Marib, and that made the whole situation kind of dicey with no end result. Now in the Arab world, we are coming to the end of the holy month of Ramadan, and there is a holiday starting tomorrow. So the whole negotiation stopped, and everybody went home for that. And I think after the holiday is over, I expect to see more talking. And unless something happens on the ground in Marib itself, I don't think the negotiations outside anything would change. What the UN are telling me is that there was no progress, but at the same time there's no deadlock. They're still talking, which is a good sign. So we have to wait a few days and see where that thing goes.
I know that you spoke to a Yemeni journalist about just how this conflict impacts the future of the Iran nuclear deal. Can you explain that to us?
Unfortunately, the whole Yemen crisis is just one big bargaining chip between Iran and the US in the nuclear deal that is being negotiated somewhere else. And the Yemenis themselves know that the decision to end the war is not going to be done in Yemen. It's going to be done in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, and Tehran, the capital of Iran, and negotiated in Vienna, where the nuclear deal is going right now. So it is really sad that you have a population of 30 million people, almost the population of Texas. 20 million of them are under severe hardship, with millions of people being threatened to die of starvation, as the UN say all the time. And then the whole fate of the country is being negotiated somewhere else, and the whole Yemen situation is just one chip in a bigger deal that is negotiated somewhere else. And it's really, really sad.
It is really sad. One has to wonder that if the powers that be that are doing all this negotiating were forced to negotiate in Yemen, perhaps they would come to a conclusion rather quickly, as opposed to, the comfort of Vienna and other places. Amjad Tadros, thank you so much.
Thank you.